Today, I have a very special guest, Diane, who I met on the gram as per usual. And Diane is a badass. And we connected maybe back in August. And I was a guest on her podcast called Boss Bitch Radio. So you should definitely go check that out. I'll make sure it's linked in the show notes for you. And today, we are going to sit down and talk about dating as it relates to, well, we're going to talk about building your body confidence and working on yourself physically and how that impacts your dating life. So, Diane, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Yay.
We had a great time on my podcast. So I'm excited to be on your podcast and talk about fitness and all the things related to dating, because I just came out of the dating world for a very long time.
Yeah. And I love how you've been showing your man and you guys just look like so happy together.
Yeah, it's great. I'm having a really fun time and it's just different now. I think, being 45 and having lots of experience in life, but also dating and being married and all the things. I'm taking what I've learned and applying it to this human, and it's going well.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that you're 45, because I believe that this brings a lot of perspective to the listener that might be 25 years old and can learn from her big sisters on the podcast.
Yeah.
The woman that is in her late 30s, 40s, and even beyond, that the reality is no matter your age, there is still potential for you to date and find love and have success. And that's just what I want the world to know.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Diane, before we dive into this, let's make sure the listeners know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm over on YouTube, Diane Flores IFBB Pro, and over on Instagram, Diane Flores _IFBB _pro, and Facebook as well. They're all pretty similar. So you can find me on the web there. And then my studio is local to here in California, which is Venus Fitness Studio. So I have a personal training gym.
Awesome. And how long have you been in the fitness industry?
I've had my business for a little over 16 years, going on 17 years. And it started as a pole dance studio. I don't know if I ever told you that story. Yeah. So it started as pole dancing, and over 16 years, it has evolved. It went from pole dancing and central movement to group fitness, boot camp style classes, and then now personal training. And we deal a lot with like competitors and people who want to bodybuild and do shows and things like that. But we also deal with everyday women, lifestyle clients who want to get in the best shape of their life and change their life through nutrition and exercise. So we do it online and in person. So it's been a really great journey. I love it.
Yeah. What led you into that journey? Were you already, when you were married, were you already into fitness, or was that something that came while you were married?
So before I got married, I dabbled in fitness. So I was probably like the average, I would say, gym goer who joins January 1st and is like hot and heavy about it for like 3 months and then falls off. And I did that pretty regularly. I at one point was over 200 pounds and unhealthy, and just lots of medical conditions and things that were a byproduct of my eating. McDonald's was like my favorite, believe it or not. And when I got married, my husband at the time, he was very much into the gym. And that was what was attractive to me, because I was kind of getting on a roll with getting back into weight training and like dabbling in that. And through our marriage, we got comfortable. We stopped working out. We both gained weight, that whole thing. And then I had another baby and all these things happened. And so my consistency with like my training and my workouts were never consistent. It was very sporadic still. But, as I merged into being a business owner in somewhat of a fitness industry, because the pole dancing stuff was very novelty and it was fun and it was a great workout, but it wasn't something that people flocked to as their regular source of fitness, right? It was like, I'm going to do this thing for a little bit. So they weren't very consistent. So my business model changed to where I eventually started offering fitness that I felt more women could relate to and stick to consistently and get results.
Okay.
And that's how the journey evolved.
Okay. And when you broke up with your ex-husband, were you already in this body or was it revenge body time?
So, it's funny because I was thinking about this podcast and I'm like, I feel like every breakup I've been through, I did glow up actually.
Yes, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, but I think it just kind of was like I'm going to turn and focus on myself and pour everything into me. And every breakup, I made significant strides in either my fitness career or my physique. And my marriage was no different. I spent a lot of time in my marriage, um, kind of pouring all my energy into myself in the sense that I busied myself. I was in denial about the things I needed to take care of in my marriage and all of that because it was easy to numb out and fitness was my drug. So during my marriage, we had a very tumultuous marriage of, multiple affairs and back and forths and breakups and all that. And through that process, I started bodybuilding and getting into competing. And, my husband at the time was supportive, but he wanted nothing to do with it. He wanted nothing to do with that part of my fitness endeavors. So it felt very lonely, but I went through it. I did it. And I did compete multiple times while I was married. And then after we got divorced, I started to take my bodybuilding career more seriously, hence the glow up. And I just was on a roll and I eventually ended up doing 16 shows and got my pro card. And yeah.
Damn, like a boss. I'm curious, do you do online coaching? I know that you mentioned you have an in-person studio.
Yes, we do. Actually, we have myself and I have 3 other coaches on my staff that coach women across the globe. I mean, we have Australia, the UK, and then we have tons of people in the States. We tend to be a favorite on the East Coast.
Okay.
The East Coast girls tend to like us a lot. But yeah, we do most of our coaching is online in terms of body transformation and honestly our athletes who compete in bodybuilding too.
Awesome. I love that. And would you say for the woman that maybe is coming out of a divorce in her more mature years, maybe she's never worked out or really intentionally taken care of herself because she's been raising children or her husband might not have been supportive or wanted to it's way easier, I think, sometimes depending on your level of motivation to have someone if your partner's working out. I feel like it's kind of hard to lay around and be like, I don't want to say a fat ass, but
no, I know what you mean.
To be a couch potato, right? And that's actually how I really got into fitness. My ex was 14 years older than me, but was an avid CrossFitter, really took care of his body, didn't really look his age. And I was at the time just eating all the McDonald's, burnt out, stressed out nurse, not taking care of myself or my body. And I kind of was like, well, damn, I can't have this old man showing me up. So what recommendations do you have for someone that is just getting started, might be intimidated to step in the gym as a more mature woman?
I think finding something that excites you is first and foremost like most important, right? Like for me, my jam is weightlifting. That's not going to be everybody's jam, right? Like I have coached women for 16 years. I've had my own body transformation throughout, the last 20 years. But most importantly, when I wake up in the morning, I'm excited most of the time to go to the gym. Not every time, but most of the time. And I'm like, okay, maybe dragging my feet to get there. But I think what happens is a lot of people will get romanticized by the latest new fad, right? Whether that's CrossFit or, let me run a marathon or Orange Theory or whatever. And I say, find something that you feel that you could stick to. I think that's the most important thing. If you like Orange Theory, if you like Zumba, if you, whatever it is, stick to it. I think finding the courage to step a foot inside of a new facility is very, very challenging. We see that every day in our brick and mortar studio where women are just like, oh, I've been on your newsletter list for 7 years. I'm like, bitch, where have you been? What are you doing? Okay, we're besties. Just come in. It's fine. Yeah. We'll hug you, And I think a lot of times people think that they need to get in shape before they go get in shape. right? Like, oh, I could never go in there. I'm too, insert the word, fat, ugly, not confident, out of shape, all the things. And I say this on the podcast often. It's like saying, well, I can't go to the dentist until my teeth are straight, or I can't go to the orthodontist until my teeth are straight, right? It's like, it's kind of the same, but not, right? You have to go to the place. It's gonna be uncomfortable. And I think if you can find an accountability person, somebody who's a friend that can do it with you, super helpful. Uh, um, and honestly, if it's within somebody's budget, I think hiring a personal trainer is so important. Somebody that you have to show up a certain day, a certain time, because you're less likely to cancel on that person than you're more likely to cancel on yourself, right?
Exactly.
Like, oh, I'm too tired. I stayed up too late watching whatever on Netflix, all the things. But if you hire someone out and you pay attention.
Yes.
Right. So that's usually my biggest go-to. And you'd be surprised. I just did a podcast interview right before we got on, a client who's been at the studio for a year. And when she said to me, I remember, never forget the phone call that her and I had a year ago. And she asked me, she said, well, I'd really like to start with 3 days a week. What do you think? And so I did a little poking and prodding, and she had not been working out at all. And so rather than say, yeah, that's great, let's go ahead, Vanessa, let's get you in 3 times a week and sell her the whole enchilada, I was like, let's just start with 2 days a week. Let's get you some wins with that consistently, and we can always upgrade your membership, right? Yeah. I don't want to take your money and then overwhelm you and all the things. So I know that was a lot, but basically it's accountability, and just, you have to just rip the Band-Aid. Otherwise, if you're waiting forever for the right time, it's never going to come.
Yeah. So is your in-person gym, is it all females or is it both?
It is. It
Oh,
is.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I
And that
love
was
that.
my thing when, when I, not to go down a weird rabbit hole, but when I was in high school, I didn't have any friends. I had one friend, and I always felt I was shy, I was introverted, and I was never part of like the cool kids club or anything. I got made fun of and all that fun stuff. And so when I started my business, my biggest mission was that every single woman who walked in, regardless of age, shape, race, any of that, was like, you could sit with us, right? This
Yeah, I
isn't
love
like
that.
the mean girls, and it's like just the fit girls hang out with the fit girls. It's very welcoming. And especially because, I don't know about you, but when I still go into a weight room these days at a regular gym, the ratio of men to women is not even. It's definitely way more men than women. And for me, I know the power of weight training and how it's transformed the shape of my body. And so I knew, like, that's what I wanted to offer for women, was a safe place where they could feel like they weren't, like, people were watching them or staring at them or judging them, which, PS, no one is. Everyone's doing their own shit at the gym, right? But a very welcoming place for women to come in and be able to lift weights and make sounds, and not worry about if their pants are see-through when they squat. Like, we don't care. It's fine,
Yeah, not worrying about getting your period in your white pants.
Yeah, no, we've seen it all. We've seen it happen, and somebody will pull somebody aside and be like, "Hey, I think you leaked in your pants." Like, okay, thank you so much. Right? Like, it's just, it's a girls' club. It's super fun. I love it.
That is so cool. And where are you located, in case any of the listeners would love to come in and drop by?
Yeah. We're in Modesto in California. So it's just central Cali. We're not too far from like Stockton, Sacramento's a little bit of a hike, but right in the smack dab in the middle.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I would love to dive in with you as someone that's been on her fitness journey, doing the thing, and specifically getting divorced. And you do have children. How many children do you have?
I have 3.
You have 3 kids.
Yeah. 3 adult children.
Yeah. So what has that been like, or what was it like when you got divorced? And then when were you ready to put yourself back out there and do the thing? And I have so many questions about this. So let's just start there.
Yeah. I was in and out of my marriage for 10 years. So we did a back and forth situation for quite some time. And when I was finally like, I've had enough, like, this is done, we are not doing each other any service by staying together, I stayed. It was a classic story of I stayed for the kids, and sacrificed a lot of like who I was and what I believed in. And I think coming out of that, I did not know what the hell I was doing. So it was like, I'm just going to try the apps because that's what everybody does. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
I did not want to tell anybody because 10 years ago, this is when I was divorced 10 years ago, it was like, oh my God, how embarrassing. Like I have to go on a dating app, right? Like where I'm not, I'm not going to tell anybody. So I didn't tell anybody. Like my profile was really like sparse and vague because I was afraid somebody was going to see me like locally. Cause I live in it's, it's not a super small town, but it's small enough that like I own a business there and I'm one of very few fitness businesses. I'm the only female centric weight training
Oh.
gym in my city. So like someone's going to notice, like anytime I go with or someone's like, hey, I think I know you or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But, so it was like, I think Zeusk and Match and I don't know, a few of those.
Plenty
So
of
that
fish.
was, yeah, that's where I started and lots of interesting dates, but I've been on lots of interesting dates in the last 10 years.
Okay.
So yeah, dating apps. I wasn't very like social in the sense that like I had a big friend group even 10 years ago where I want
Okay.
to go out and like go to the bars or do any of that. So it was strictly online stuff for me.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of online. And 10 years ago, I was on the apps whenever I met my very first, well, maybe
Mm-hmm.
my third long-term boyfriend. We met on an app and I've just always been open to it. So when people are like, oh, you're on dating apps, I love technology. I love social media. For me, it just makes sense. Like your phone is always in your hand. I mean, maybe 10 years ago, we didn't actually have the accessibility the way that we do now with
Right.
technology and stuff. But to the woman that's listening to this, we both are in successful relationships from dating apps right now. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
more proof that they actually do work. And we really are just living in a different world where people are online. This is how
Yeah.
we connect. This is how, even if you are that 40 something year old woman that has dedicated majority of your life to raising children and doing all these things and now your kids are flocking the coop and it's like, okay, who am I, what am I doing? That technology can bring you some of the best people that you'll ever meet too. I think that there's just such a stigma around it, which is silly to me
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah, there is. And I think for me, one huge mistake that I made dating probably 10 years ago, but even, I mean, I'd say the last 2 years, I've been a lot more successful in my dating in the sense that I have not been attached to the outcome.
Yes.
Right. So 10 years ago, I got on and I was like, oh my God, why isn't this guy replying? Guys suck. I hate men. I was that girl, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
blaming everything on everybody. And it was like, I was so desperate to just be in a relationship that it was nauseating.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just too much. So the way that I've approached it the last couple years has been, I'm not putting all my eggs in any baskets.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going to just have fun and roll with it. Right. And I got better at like my screening process was much better, with being single for 10 years, the better part of 10 years, you and being on apps, this is just something that I became really accustomed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You put in the reps.
Most definitely. I definitely put in a lot of reps. I think for me, my formula was really, and I don't know what your take is on this because I would love to know too, but it was like, I just wasn't swiping on everybody, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just like, oh yeah, okay, he's kind of looks like he'd be interesting, kind of cute, kind of. If it was kind of, it needed to be a hell yes or it was a no,
I love that.
right? And so, and so I don't know. When I'm on the apps, I would just take my time. I would read
Mm-hmm.
profiles. I would see if there was anything that were like definite um conflicts of interest, right? Like someone who likes to binge watch Netflix and party with their buddies and drink Coors Light all weekend's probably not going to be my dude,
Right.
Like that's not my lifestyle. So I think you have to be real with what you want, who you are, and use that as a filter when you're looking through profiles.
That is so huge. And if there are any men, because there are a few men that will say they listen to the podcast or really resonate with the content, as if you want to win on a dating app as a man, you need to put words because women are so much more yes, there needs to be a physical attraction, but we're more emotionally and energetically driven, I believe. So that is a hack there. And for women too, you need to put some substance into these profiles so that you really stand out. And you may not know this, but there are far more men on dating apps than there are women. So, as Diane was saying, be selective, be kind of quote picky, and don't be desperate and detached from the outcome. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, what was the shift where you went from getting out of your marriage, being desperate for a relationship to almost this, I don't give a fuck? What do you think helped you get to that spot?
It's funny because I was like, it wasn't a light switch because I remember
Mm.
distinctly last year, probably early last year, I was talking to somebody that I met on the apps. He was a cop and we had gone on several dates and I had done my infamous, I'm all like, this is the guy, right? Like
Mm.
chemistry, all the things. I think we had 3 or 4 dates and he kept like dropping the ball. Like the last few dates, I'm so sorry. Like something came up at work. I can't make it. I can't make it. I can't make it. And so I just got fed up with that. And then I got
Yeah.
fed up with my own bullshit. Like, why
Mm.
are you allowing somebody to continue to dangle a carrot, let you know 15 minutes before a date that you're, oh, sorry, I can't make it, and then not answer a reply to text message in a timely fashion? And I'm like, listen, we always have our phones on us. If you have a consistent pattern with somebody and you usually reply, and then all of a sudden that switches and it's like you
Mhm.
don't hear anything for like 4 to 6 hours or the next day, I ain't got
Yeah.
time for that. Go kick rocks. So for me, it was almost like I needed that experience one last time because I hadn't really felt like that about anybody where I'm like, okay, I could see this being a
Mm.
guy that I date. Right. And then he royally fucked that up. And so I was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So I just decided I'm going to keep the apps open. I'll browse and peruse, but I'm not going to make that like a focus. I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to do me. I'm going to keep living my life. I just made sure I wasn't hermiting, is what my friends call it when I do that. I will hermit and I just will like not come out of the house for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's like still going out and being social and things like that. And then I just decided, you know what? I'm going to date casually. I'm
Mm.
going to date casually. I'm going to change my profile and I'm just going to have fun. Go on dates. If there's chemistry and things happen, great. If not, peace out. No harm, no foul. And
Mm-hmm.
so I changed the verbatim on my profile and I said, I'm looking for a long term partner
Mm.
and not opposed to casual dates and play partners along the way. Right.
Okay.
So if we have a chemistry and within the first 20 minutes, I'm like, yeah, you know, I just have things that I know I'm not interested in doing. I'm not interested in raising little kids anymore. Like I've already
Yeah.
done that, right? So if you're a hot dude and whatever, we have chemistry, but you have like a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, you're probably not going to be my boo thing, but we can have some fun, right?
Right.
So
Mm.
I just started creating a little more lightheartedness around the process.
Mm-hmm.
And when I relinquished the need and the neediness around it, I felt like it just the right person came. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready for that. And then we just organically clicked.
Yeah, I resonate with so much of that because that was how a lot of my journey started. And then it is the more that you show up and do something, the more that you put yourself out there and you have these different experiences. Not that it's about comparing people, but you'll just get to see that certain men are very different, right? Certain men, if they say that they're going to meet you at a restaurant at 7 p.m., they're going to be there at 6:45. And then
Mhm.
I saw in a Facebook group recently, this girl said that she was asking inside of this Facebook group, how long should I wait for him? And she had been there for 30 minutes. And I'm like, girl, your ass should have been gone a long time at 5 minutes into this, especially if they didn't text you to say that they were going to be late. Red
Yeah.
flag.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is I've been stood up on 2 or 3 dates
Mm-hmm.
in the last couple years. And I think one of the biggest things that I did to kind of like get over it was I just didn't take it personal. I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever, his loss, right? Like,
Yeah. Yep.
well, you just lost out on a potential good situation or a good time, right? So
Yeah.
that's how I started taking it. I wasn't like ho hum and crying and, oh my God, nobody wants me. What's wrong with me? Was I too needy? Was I too this, too that? No.
Yeah.
I just left it. I'm like, your loss.
Yeah.
And, block, delete, move on. Next, next, you just cleared up a space for somebody else. Goodbye.
Yeah, I love that. And to me, that is my entire message, right? When you raise your standards of yourself, you become a magnet. And I actually had a rule, and I would challenge the listener to apply this, especially if you're out and you're doing the thing and you're having the experiences. If a man cancels on you, that is not an invitation for you to accept a same day loose plan for the other guy that might hit you up on an app that same day. And instead, pour into yourself. Go take yourself out to dinner. Go watch a movie. Go spend time with yourself and do not compromise that. Because I think what happens to a lot of women is that we're so attached to where this is going to go. We're marrying our husbands while we're swiping on these apps in our minds. And then you get so caught up, and it's like, oh shit, he ghosted me. He didn't do this. And what Diane did, which is such a fucking key to your success in dating, is not allowing your energy to be rocked. Is that when you are in that high vibration of feeling like, oh, he texted me to ask me out and made this plan, that if something happens, you maintain that vibration, that you're
Yes.
not confusing the universe with what you want. And I love that you mentioned that you got stood up. I went on nearly something like 100 first days. I haven't counted. I could go back in my calendar, but it was a lot. I was a serial dater. And actually, in April, I got stood up for the very first time ever. It never happened to me. And it was the same night that I actually met my boyfriend. But it
I
was
remember
because I carried that same energy of like, oh yeah, I don't give a shit. Like, you're lost, bro. And as I'm getting into an Uber to leave the restaurant or the bar where we were supposed to meet, my boyfriend randomly texted me. And I hadn't talked to this man in like 4 months since we had connected on a dating app.
Yeah.
So wild.
Amazing. It
Yeah.
was supposed to happen. Yeah. I
100%.
think another one thing that I did, which I'm not saying that anybody needs to do this or recommend, is that I can't remember. I was in a long-term relationship for 3 years on and off. It was very toxic.
Mm.
And when I ended that relationship, I did a no contact, right? Like no contact. I didn't speak to him for a year. Like he would text and be like, yo, like this, we're not doing this anymore. So
Uh-huh.
shut that door was very difficult, was very, very hard, very difficult, was the best thing I ever did.
Mm.
And I also decided that I was not interested in just jumping into another relationship. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people make is
Mm-hmm.
they are done with one and then they're instantly like already looking for the next relationship, or they have the rebound booty
Mm-hmm.
call or whatever, and then that ends up into a situationship
Yeah.
or something. But I went 9 months with zero sex, zero dating, zero casual anything, nothing, no apps, and I was just like, I'm focusing on me.
Yeah. Love that.
So for 9 months, I did that, and I ended up getting my pro card. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pour all of my attention into myself because I was just kind of in pieces after that. And it was the best thing. And I think, honestly, taking the time between relationships
Mm-hmm.
was super important. And then there's a ton of great books out there, but one great book that I read that I would always go back to was Single on Purpose by John Kim. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but it's
Not heard of
great.
it.
I mean, the premise is just work on yourself, figure
Mm-hmm.
out what you like what kind of incredible human can you become when you just devote all your energy into yourself and be
Mm-hmm.
single on purpose. Like, no, I'm not dating. Like, it's okay. I'm not broken.
Yeah.
I chose to be single,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would always go like, oh, are you trying to get a boyfriend? Clients in the studio would be so sweet. Oh, I'm hoping that, I'm trying to think of somebody. I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'm great by myself, and that was a huge change for me. Definitely.
Yeah. So when you took that intentional, and I love that it was intentional, it wasn't this, there are no good men, so that's not why I'm dating. It was this, no, I'm going to pour in myself. I'm going to be in the gym. I'm going to be building my body. Pouring that energy to me is what makes you the magnet for the world. And you mentioned too that as you noticed that you took more intentional focus on yourself after your breakups, that there was always some sort of glow up, be it in your business or your life or whatever that is. And I think that that's such a powerful message for people to hear.
Most definitely. And I think too, I would assume that the audience that you attract are very, high caliber women, empowered women, women who have their shit together and they're like making moves. And one recurring theme that I've heard over the last 10 years is, you're very intimidating. It's intimidating because you're doing all these things and this is by men, right? You're doing all these things and I could never be in fitness like that. I'm like, well, first of all, it's not what I'm looking for, but
Yeah.
whatever. So it was an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing when you lead in your dating profile as a confident, empowered woman is you want to attract the man that can meet you at your level, right? Like,
Absolutely.
good. If you think I'm too this for you, great. You've just eliminated yourself from a
Yep.
possibility because
Yep.
I'm not trying to be with a man who is insecure or lacks confidence or isn't trying to like at least match my energy in
Totally.
the sense that like we vibe with a confidence. Like he knows he's good enough for me and he can take charge for, you know,
Yeah.
for our like relationship in the sense of being met.
Yeah, I love that. And especially too, as women, I think that probably you and I vibe in this. You're an entrepreneur, kind of being in your more quote masculine energy most times that it can be. I've had people tell me I'm intimidating. I'm like, I'm 4'9". Like, what actually is intimidating about this? But it's the energy, it's the confidence. And something that's really important if or when we might have men say you're to this or you're to that, not looking at that as you need to change something within yourself and looking at that as, oh, this person doesn't have space for my bigness. And then
Mm-hmm.
your job becomes, okay, that's cool, right? Detaching from that. Next, who does have the space for it? And I think that that's so important.
Yeah, definitely. It's very important. I know there was so one thing I realized early on when I was on dating apps is if I connected with somebody, and this is just my experience, I don't know how you feel about this or what your sort of blueprint is for this, but when you'd start engaging in conversation on apps and then eventually one of two things I would have to decide. Do I want to give this person my phone number
Mm.
or do I want to give them my social media? Right. Like,
Oh,
and we
okay.
can communicate there and flirt via stories and I can check them out. It's like their resume, right? Like, I want to see your
Mm.
Instagram. Like, it's going to tell me some things about you, right? At least this is how I operate. And so there was a gentleman that I met on Facebook dating,
Mm.
handsome, fit into fitness, all the things. And I said, okay, well, let's move this over to Instagram, right? Because I'm
Mm.
not really on Facebook very much. So we moved it over to Instagram. And for like weeks, he was radio silent, yet he was watching my stories and all the things. And he'd make a comment here and there. And so finally one day I was like, hey, so are we ever going to like grab coffee or something, And he's like, honestly, you're at a whole different level than I am. And I just know that where you're at is not where I'm at. And
Mm.
he was like, he was intimidated. And I was like, okay, I always hesitated to hand out my Instagram handle because
Mm.
either one, I would do my research and be like, yeah, this would never work. Or two, they would be like, oh gosh, you're really in shape. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's when I'm on stage. I don't look like that all the time. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was more of I never gave a shit about giving my number out to people, to be quite honest. And I actually, my MO was to get men off of the dating app as fast as I could. If there was an attraction, there was some conversation, I would just say, hey, I don't have notifications turned on for this thing. And here's my number. And I would put it in their court. Either they could choose to text me or not. And for me, I hated giving out my social media or when men would find me because of the type of content that I would post
Hmm.
specifically about dating. And I
Makes
actually
sense.
had a guy, we met in a parking lot And this is like the
Like
weirdest
your
story.
date was in the parking lot? I'm so
No,
curious.
he picked me. Oh no, like I was walking my dog and he drove up in this like really nice fancy car and then passed me and then swung back around. And he's like, I would really hate myself if I did not get your phone number. So I gave him my phone number and he's like, I would love to take you out to dinner and drinks tomorrow. And I'm like, wow, like me, this man in this nice fancy car. And so we ended up going out. I think it was the next night. Like it was a Thursday that I met him, and then that Friday night we ended up going out. And he was like, the weird part of this was when he went to go look me up on Instagram, he had been in my DMs 2 years ago.
Oh
But
my goodness.
yeah, wild. And back then I had a partner and, it was like shot him down. I think I actually I think I probably had him blocked, but he comes to the first date and he's like, you're never going to believe this. I'm so embarrassed, but I've tried to hit you up many times before. But he didn't know that the day that he saw me in the parking lot.
Right.
So I had posted something on my Instagram about how to get a man to follow up with you. And I actually was on another date and he texted me and he's like, hey, I just want to make sure that we're still on for tomorrow. I saw your Instagram. And
oh my gosh.
people would either be intimidated by that or they would think, oh, you're just going on dates to get content. And it never really was like that for me. It was just me sharing my experiences at the time. So, if you're here and you're wondering, do you want to give out your social media or not? That's totally on you, but also don't tie a man looking at your stories to meaning that he likes you because they're sitting on the fucking toilet just scrolling.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Don't get too wrapped up in that. I used to all the time. I'm like, he hasn't watched my stories.
Yeah, like if you're looking for him to be like on your stories, honestly, just remove him. And if a man started following me on social media, I'd say, hey, I really rather meet you in person because just Instagram and social media, I think that people can tend to put these stories about you or create these stories about you. And my preference is always just get to know the real me. So let's do that over on text message or something until we know one another.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's interesting, getting hit up in the DMs is not something that like normally happens for me, just like randos.
Yeah, me either.
I have like some that follow and lurk and they'll comment here and there and like my pictures or whatever. But for the most part, I'm not getting a ton of action in the DMs, right? Like, yes, there's guys that I have either dated or, had found on an app or maybe had never even met before that follow me and things like that. But there isn't a whole lot of that going on in my DMs. And there never really has.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. I would put, when I was on Field, I would put my Instagram because a lot of men too will complain that there are bots or that it's sex workers that are on these apps. And I, at one point, would have my handle in there just to be like, I'm a real human. Don't follow me though.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I think I had my Instagram profile connected to Bumble and maybe it was Hinge or something like that. And people would figure out who I was, right? They would either read my shirt that was wearing and see my studio name on one of my pictures that was connected or something. And they'd find me over there, which is fine. I mean, it's whatever, but I did it for the same reason. Like, hey, just so you know, like I'm a hustler, I'm a mover and a shaker. So here's my Instagram. If you can't keep up, you need to keep swiping. Right. So that was kind of, I know that sounds very cocky, but it's like, I'm 45 years old, right? I don't have time to play games and all the things. So it's dating. I would just go into it and just like, I'm just going to have fun. I'm just going to have fun. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to be myself. I'm not going to try to be somebody that I'm not, just for the sake of this person liking me more. And I think that's a great way to just embody that first experience, is just go in and have fun with zero expectations. And just imagine you're getting to know a new friend, right? Like a new person that is in a friend group or something, and you're having coffee and like make conversation or, whatever your first date is. I don't do dinner dates for the first date, but that's just me.
Yeah, I like to tell people to call the first date a vibe check. I
Hmm.
think that that takes this pressure off of it. And there's a lot of memes going around right now. This woman that wouldn't get out of the car because the man took her to Cheesecake Factory. Have you
Oh
seen that?
my gosh. No, but my boyfriend sent me a meme that has a list of places you never take a girl on a date ever. And he's like, oh, I took you to the Cheesecake Factory on our first date, but in all fairness, it was your idea and you wanted cheesecake after the nice restaurant. I was like, okay, yeah, that doesn't count. I was my idea. So yes, it's fine. We had cheesecake. We didn't eat dinner there.
I mean, also
But that's funny.
a man could take me to Cheesecake Factory and I'd be like, okay, cool. But I'm kind of with you where so many women want to be there's all this stuff on the internet about high value and finding high value men and all of this stuff. And the reminder is that the one thing that we don't get back is time. And so this man can be a high value man and take you to this fancy restaurant and he could be a total fucking dick. And here you've spent an hour, hour and a half, gotten yourself all dolled up for a fucking bum potentially, but he's high value, you
Right.
know? I'm curious because I am not, but how was it or has it been dating with children?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one. Um, so I decided personally that I wasn't going to share information with my children
Okay.
in terms of not necessarily that I was lying, but just I wasn't going to mention anybody that I was dating until it was somebody that I felt was worthy to bring around my children. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my own personal preference. You do you. But for me, growing up, I did witness my mom sort of bring in different guys, right? It was like a revolving door. My mom's been married 6 times,
Oh,
and
shit.
we have a strained relationship. And so that was something that never left me. It was something that I was like, I will, if anything happens, that's not something I'm interested in doing because I know
Mm.
how it affected me.
Yeah.
I'm a highly sensitive person. And so seeing that was very triggering, especially 3 months after her and my dad divorced, right?
Mm.
After being
Yeah.
married for 13 years. So it
Yeah.
was really challenging for me. So when I became single and I started dating, my children, in the past 10 years have met four men.
Okay.
And one relationship was 2 years, one relationship was 3 years, one was pretty early. It was about 4 months, but it was like a click. We clicked really well. Um, and that's a story for another podcast because he stole money from me.
Oh, fuck.
So that was a tragedy, and that's why it ended early. And then my current boyfriend. So in 10 years, it's been a short list of like, hey, they
Mhm.
met this person. So for me, it's my kids filter that for me, right?
Okay.
That's the filter is, will this person work well with my family dynamic? Are they
Mhm.
going to get along with my children? Now, my kids don't absolutely need to be head over heels, like think that this is the most amazing person ever, right? Because you know how that is. I'm
They're not.
probably not going to feel the same way. No one's ever going to be good enough for my children. So
Right.
I get that. But for me, it was a slow, gradual process. I wanted to make sure that I got past the whole like honeymoon phase of dating and the endorphins and all that before I just drug in another person every time and all that. And much like yourself, I've probably been on close to 100 dates in the past 10 years too. So I think the ratio is pretty good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
dating with children is a little bit different. And mine are older. So now it's easier. My oldest is going to be 28, my daughter's 26, and then my youngest will be 18. So
Mm.
now it's a little bit different. But when they were younger, it was challenging. It was definitely
Mm.
challenging to uh I understand the hesitation with women who maybe don't want to tell people, well, I have 3 kids by two
Yeah.
different baby daddies, right? Like it's whatever. But for me, that's something that I was never ashamed of. And
Mhm.
it never, I always handled my own. I like in terms
Mhm.
of like financially, and I was never really like looking to cling on to somebody to take care of me. That was never
Yeah.
my MO. Was genuinely looking for a partner, a life partner,
Mhm.
without having somebody that I was trying to take care of me and my babies. Like I was taking care of that.
Yeah. You hold your own.
Yeah, I was holding my own. I'm like, yeah, you don't have to worry about that. But FYI, I do have 3 children, you know.
Yeah. So was that something that you would disclose either on dating apps or right up front?
In dating apps, I know that I definitely marked on there like does not want more children, right? Like has
Mm,
children, does not want children or something. I made sure
sure.
to disclose that up front because I did start talking to somebody and dating somebody who was trying to convince me that I was going to have his children
Oh, fuck.
because he was over 10 years younger than me. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, that's not happening. Right. So that was a deal breaker. But I think for me personally, if I'm looking for a partner, that needs to be disclosed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's something that I definitely was upfront about on apps. And then during the interview process, aka dating, it would come up usually that first date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I do believe that things that are huge deal breakers for either party, religion, children, all these different things, politics, right? Where it
Yeah.
can be, hey, I can never date someone that XYZ. And I've had men, I actually recorded a podcast. If you go back to episode 8 in season 3, I talk about the time that I was love bombed. And this man, we had connected one time. And when I found out he had children, I disconnected from him because that was a deal breaker for me. And then somehow we connected on another app again.
Mm.
And I didn't know that he had kids because he didn't bring it up. And I mean, I would swipe. I don't fucking remember all these people, you know?
Yeah.
And we went out to dinner and he asked me the question, well, hey, what are some of your deal breakers? And I go, men with children. And he goes, oh, I already know that. And I was like,
Oh,
what? And he's like, well, we've connected before in an app. And when you found out that I had kids, you unmatched me. So when we matched again, I was just so excited because I really wanted to get to know you and take you out. And instead of me, this is where like a lot of the work I've had to do, instead of me being like, ew, bro, fuck you, it was, oh, let's get really fucking drunk and have a great time and not go home till 3 a.m. One
oh,
of those
yeah.
things. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think open honesty is so important and not to be ashamed if you are a woman that has kids because sure it might land you a first date for you to tell somebody that you or for you not to disclose that you have children, but then what happens a month in date 3 date
Right.
4 at some point this man needs to know, and if that's his deal breaker it's his deal breaker and it just means there's somebody else waiting for you and might be cool with you having kids.
I agree. And one thing that John Romanello had told me early on when I started working with him, sort of on like dating and coaching and,
Mm-hmm.
open lifestyle things, was he had said, and this was a great like way for me to reframe things, is if there's something about somebody that isn't a match, right? There's a deal breaker, it's a kid thing, don't take that personally. It's just a mismatch in desires, right? You like for you, for example, you didn't want to date somebody who has children. It means nothing about that man. It can be a fantastic man. It
Right.
just means for the way that you want to map out your life and the things that you have planned or you want to do, that's not congruent. And I think if you can detach from, oh, he doesn't want me because I'm damaged goods, because that was my thing for a long time. I have 3 kids, no one's going to want me, right?
Mm,
Eventually there were men that came along and they were fine with that and it
yeah.
didn't affect them ever. And it was great and fine. And there were men that it did. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just knew it's a mismatch, right? That
Yep.
guy wants to have kids. I'm not the right girl for him. And so I think if you can really uh, approach dating in that mindset, when you come up against somebody who is not in line with something that is like the truest thing of your down to your core with what you want, you have to express that. Otherwise, you are settling and you are going to be unhappy and it'll come out in other ways. Trust me, because I've been there.
100%. And a note about settling is that when you settle and it is for something that you don't want, you are literally blocking the blessing of the person that's there for you or supposed to be there for you. My boyfriend and I are compatible as fuck. We are the same kind of crazy, the same kind of delinquent, and it is so much fun. We have so much fun together. But I also wrote a list of what it was I was looking for in my next partner. And I
That's so
didn't
crazy.
really want to have kids when I was with my previous ex, my former ex, and he had two kids. They were a little bit older. So I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to be like stepmom, whatever. But when we ended that relationship, it was like, okay, Yolanda, what do you really fucking want? And get super clear. And when you have that clarity, and the universe will like pick up that ping, right? It's like,
Mhm.
hey, this is the thing that I really want. And I swear, my boyfriend came to me wrapped up in a bow, like, here, bitch.
It's so
Exactly what I
funny.
have written down on paper.
I swear we had this conversation too, because I journal a lot, and
Mhm.
I say manifest with air quotes because I don't, you know, I always tell him like I'm a witch and I cast a spell and there you were.
My boyfriend
But
calls me a witch.
yeah, but I have journals upon journals. I've been dear
Mhm.
diarying since I was like 10 years old. But
Yeah.
um, I went back in my journals in the past 2 years, and every 6 months ish, I would write a list of what I was looking for in a partner.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because even in 6 months, you can change your mind. The things that you thought
Absolutely.
were important or you prioritized can change over the course of 6 months. And sure enough, it evolved every 6 months. And the last iteration was February of this year. And I met him in March. And
Mm.
in February, I listed and brain dumped everything I wanted in a partner, and to a T, with the exception of one thing, which was that I wanted somebody who'd be willing to wash my dogs. I manifested this man exactly a list of like 30 different things
Yeah.
that I was interested in.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to that. You're putting it out into the universe.
Absolutely. And to the woman, I had somebody ask a really good question. She's like, well, how do you not put all your eggs in one basket when you're dating? And I love this reflecting and that intentional check in with yourself, because when you are going on dates, what's going to happen is you'll have a little bit of clarity and you'll get something, or someone will come and it's like, that's a little bit off, right? And then so
Mhm.
you go back to like your
Your witch's
ingredient
brew.
list, and it's like you pour shit in there and you
Mhm.
stir it up and it's like, oh wait, this is the thing. And you just get more and more clarity all the time. And
Yes.
like I said, it's so beautiful. But I used to do the same, where it was I would meet somebody and I'm like, oh, well, he's great, but I need to make sure this next person has this thing. And so
Mhm.
every time it's just like you conspiring with the universe to create that man, and he will fucking show up.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but dating was a challenge for me in the sense of like what you brought up with like, how do you date multiple people and not put your eggs in one basket? And I think it was important for me to date and meet lots of people, right? Because it was like I was narrowing down what I wanted based off of the
Yes.
things that I did not want in
Yep.
in certain people. And it's just they're amazing people, but just not for me. And I was like, "Ooh, I really like this about so and so, but not that." And
Yep.
so my list was getting more specific and precise, as like a recipe, right?
Yep. No,
This sounds
100%.
awful because I know we're not ordering humans like you order a number three from McDonald's, but essentially, I was like listing these are the great, amazing qualities I would love for a partner to have, or things or interests and things like that. And
Yeah.
I think the dating part is very important when you're single. So you can have these different experiences and be able to decide what what you want. And
Yeah.
I mean, I never put my eggs in one basket. For the last couple years I was dating loosely, but for me it's like, ask yourself, am I going out with this person just because I'm bored, or would I actually go
Mm,
out with this person because I genuinely want to go out with that person? And
yeah.
so if I was hanging out with somebody continuously just because I was like, oh, I'm bored, and so and so's not doing anything, or we're just like hanging out,
Mm-hmm.
then I was like, yeah, I could be putting my energy into something or someone else. And I would turn those dates away more often.
Yeah. So you're in a happy relationship, met your man on Hinge, right?
Bumble.
Oh, Bumble. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
we're bumblebees. Yeah.
Bumble. I love that. I
Yeah.
met I met my boyfriend on Hinge, and then he saw me on Tinder back in April, which is why
That's
he
too funny.
swiped again and he was like, "Oh, but I have this girl's number," and hit me up.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was Bumble. Um, he's from the East Coast. He's from
I love
Boston.
an East
And
Coast man.
yeah. And I've dated a few guys from the East Coast over the last 10 years. And there was always just a chemistry, like a good click.
Yeah.
I just click really well with East Coast people, I think, because my attitude is just kind of
100%.
very direct.
Yeah.
So his first opening line was like, wow, I bet these Cali guys are intimidated by you. And I'm like, cha-ching.
Is he
And
a
that's
Leo?
how he's November, so I'm not sure. No, end of November. November 29th.
Might be a
Yeah.
Scorpio.
I feel
I
like I
don't
feel
know
like yeah.
those.
I know I don't either. Unless you're a Gemini, I don't know anything else, but
We're gonna look it up. November 29th,
yeah.
because now I need to know and then I'll commit it to my memory.
I love that. Okay. Tell me.
Uh,
Tell me.
his zodiac is Sagittarius. That was the fire. Yeah, that's fire.
Sagittarius.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which probably gets along with a Gemini. So
Well, let's hope so.
So, do
Yes.
you feel that marriage is in the cards for you? I know that you mentioned having a life partner and being 45 and like Diane is a baddie. When you please go stalk her on Instagram because she's fucking sexy, right?
I
And she
appreciate that.
looks
Thank you.
good. Of course, she looks good. She takes care of herself. It's not like you feel like your baggage because you have children and you're more fucking 45 is not even old because I'm like knocking on the door of 40, right?
Yeah.
So your
Right.
mind really changes when you get
Mhm.
older this way. And I
Yeah.
mean, we're probably having some of the best years of our lives.
Most definitely.
But do you think and or want to be married again? I'm curious.
Interesting question that I probably would have said no to a year ago. And I'm already planning my wedding. No, I mean, I say that jokingly, but we've been dating for 8 months. It's still very, very new, but nonetheless, my our story is a little bit interesting because I was definitely doing some open relationship things early on.
Okay.
And he was very aware of it. And when we started dating, I said, like, look, this is what I'm doing right now. This is the phase
Sure.
of my life. And so we were dating, and the last couple months I decided that I wanted to focus solely on growing our relationship together and not be dating anyone else or, having any kind of like solo dating experiences or solo play. And so it's been remarkable in terms of how we both turned our focus towards each other and how it has grown exponentially in the last 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
just from a intimacy perspective, like being the intimate, not sexually, but just getting to know each other
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and sexually. But he has no kids, no biological children. He's never been married. He's 44, and he is somebody that can be fully in my feminine with. And that was something I explained to him was, I'm in my masculine so much. I'm a leader. I'm in power. I'm a go-getter. I'm all the things. And I don't get to be in my feminine very often,
Yeah.
right? Where I'm just like, somebody is looking after me and kind of taking that leadership role. And he, without a shadow of a doubt, stepped in and did that from day one.
Yeah.
And I kept waiting and I kept thinking, like, I'm going to wait to see when this changes, when he's going to stop like opening doors for me and, handing me my menu at dinner and giving me my placemats and handing me, like, looking after me. Like, how long is this going to last? Right.
Yeah.
Every day, like clockwork,
Fuck
nothing
yeah.
has changed. It's literally the type of person he is. So to answer your question, marriage isn't off the table. I'm not like anti-marriage like I was.
Uh-huh.
I would love to be in a dedicated relationship, in a partnership, in a marriage. And yeah, I would do it again.
I love that. And I swear, Diana, I feel like we are just these like souls that thank goodness for Instagram because we have so many commonalities. And the big message here is that you can change your mind whenever you want to. When I started dating, John actually was like, Yolanda, why aren't you on field? How come you haven't had a threesome? Like all these things.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was really, really open to those things. And then also, I was very closed off to the idea of having children. And I've, for years, been like, I don't want kids. I don't want kids. And then my boyfriend comes and I'm like, Oh, like it's kind of getting to this like weird spot where I'm like, I don't know, but like next year you need to be trying to put a baby in me.
See? Yep. I'm a strong believer in never say never.
Yeah,
Never say
100%.
never. Yeah.
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 And my boyfriend also, he's a year younger than me, but our birthdays are a day apart and
Mhm.
never been married, never had kids. And so for the woman that's here, I feel like we have these men that they are just good guys.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times too, women don't appreciate the nice man either because they are toxic. They need to heal themselves. They don't know how to be open to receive. Maybe they're either too in their feminine or too much in their masculine, where they can't allow these kind of men to come in. And so, if that is you, I would really challenge you to look at that if you're so turned off by the nice men. But I totally get what you're saying of like waiting for when does this stop? Like,
Yeah.
when does it stop? When do the doors stop being held open and things like that? And my boyfriend, this is very weird, but it's been a surrender for me because I am so hyper independent in my masculine. We'll go to dinner, and I know the feminists are going to come get me for this.
Okay. I'm here for you.
But we'll go to dinner and he'll be like, oh, we'll look at the menu, like, hey, babe, like, what are you going to eat? What are you going to have to drink? And I allow him to order for me.
Same here.
Okay, great.
He'll be like, do you want me to order for you? And I'm like, at first I would let him. And then I have like a bunch of dietary issues. And I was like, so now he knows them and he knows like no onions, no garlic, this, and that. And so he will gladly steer that ship. If we sit down to dinner and he'll be like, she'll have, and I'm like, this is kind of hot, daddy.
No, I fucking
So
love
hot.
it. But that's something it's taken me a while to get here. And one of the things my boyfriend always says, like, he loves words of affirmation, right? It's so important to figure out how your partner needs to be loved, right? So that you can give them that and reinforce behaviors when they're doing things. But he always says, when I'm like, I'm just so grateful for you. You treat me so well, all these things. And he's like, well, let me just keep showing you. Like, let me just keep showing you. And he just shows the fuck up. I love it.
It's definitely a refreshing feeling. But I do want to say, because I know we're probably coming to the end here.
Yeah.
One thing that is different in this situation for me, and I don't know how you feel about it, is, I'm a bossy person. I'm a boss bitch. I'm all up in the like, no, I like things my way, and a control freak. And I have had men that are too nice. That I'm like, I will walk all over you, right?
Yes,
like,
yes.
you will be a doormat. And not that I'm intentionally doing that, but that'll happen just by the nature of who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
This man was like, he's too nice, but he's also like, he is was a bad boy. So he has a little bit of that like East Coast baddie in him.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, no, you aren't going to treat me like that. Right. Like in the beginning when I was like dating and this and that, and he was just like, yeah, no, I know who I am. I know what I bring to the table, and I am not like, nobody puts baby in the corner. Like that was his, that was his kind of like his MO. And that was hot to me because I was like, he's showing up full steam ahead for me in all the areas. He's being nice. He's being, giving, and, he likes to give gifts and does all the things, but also like, I can't have this dynamic with him, right? He's not going to allow for me to just like walk all over him. And that to me is great. Like, because I know that myself, and I love that he also does too.
I love that. It just sounds so great. I'm great. I'm glad that you have this just amazing man and you came here on the podcast today to share about your fitness journey and hopefully inspiring women that might be in their 40s and beyond to get into the gym. And if they are single, get themselves on dating apps and just show up and work on improving yourself. And before you leave, Diane, I would love for you to leave us with a piece of advice.
On dating, I'm assuming, yes.
Yeah. Or honestly, or just in life, right? If you were to close your eyes and think about one woman, what do you think she might need to hear today?
I would say if you treat yourself the way that you want to be treated, if you show up for yourself the way that you would show up for someone else that you love dearly, somebody that you care about, and you do the things for yourself that you would want somebody else that you love very much to do for themselves, right? Like your sister, your best friend, you know, your partner, that you speak to yourself that way, that you treat yourself that way, you'll be amazed at what you no longer settle for.
Such a mic drop.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
most definitely.
Yeah. Well, Diane, thank you so much for coming to hang today. I hope that I get to meet you in real life at some point. Do you have
We
any
have
plans
to.
to come to Austin?
You know, my sister lives in Texas,
Oh,
so it's not off the table. I believe she's a couple hours from Austin, but I might have to make a trip out there and visit my sister and visit my Texas friends, because I have a few Texas clients and listeners over there, and that would be super
yeah.
fun. I would love
That would
that.
be so much fun.
Yeah, most
All
definitely.
right. Yeah. Well, to my listeners, I will make sure that all of Diane's information is linked. Please go give her a follow. She will inspire the shit out of you. She has just this unapologetic nature, tells it like it is. And that's just always so refreshing to me. So thanks again for coming to hang out with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Yolanda, and best wishes to everybody out there in the dating world. It's a jungle, but not one that you can't get through.
Oh, I love that.